Hi, Andy here again. This is part 3 of my occasional series, which I'm calling the Millennium Years. So basically, we're looking at a 10-year period which straddled the millennium even, starting in '94. Running through to 2003, so 20 years ago. Now, usually I do these videos in my office stroke study stroke storage room, but I'm in my conservatory today. Conservatory come potting shed come greenhouse. Spent a bit of time in here recently, and it's nice and sunny, so I thought I'd do this one in here. And you can see behind me I've got loads of pots on the go. Because basically I've got an allotment, so I do grow a lot of veggies of different types, and try and grow as many from seed as I can. Loads have already gone out, but there's a batch behind me still which are still growing, and they'll need frost free basically, and where I am there's a risk of frost to the end of May, so they'll carry on growing in here, and then they're going to go out. But this isn't about gardening, it's about my records. So let's get going and talk about records. I've got 10 records to go through this year. I might have had 11. I've got an honourable mention because I just can't find it, and that is Beck's Odelay. So that's not appearing in here simply because I can't find my CD of it. But I've got 10 other ones. 4 on vinyl and 6 CD, because obviously it was the 90s, so a lot of the original stuff I bought, well, all of the stuff I bought at the time was on CD, and some of it I've either rebought or bought later on vinyl. So starting with number 10, and that is Robert Miles' Dreamland. So a classic of electronica, dance music, but really the more sort of ambient electronica end of that. Robert was a Swiss national, I believe, died not that long ago, 2 or 3 years ago. I think he had cancer. And I've got this at number 10. I really like the album. It's a very good album, but it's not an all killer. So most of the album is good rather than outstanding, but it does have possibly the most outstanding that I like of electronica tracks, and that's Children. And in fact, it's so good, there's 2 on here. There's the Dream version, which is the one which is played, that's a single I think, and then it's got the original on there as well. So great album, number 10. So we come to our first piece of vinyl, number 9, and it's Tortoise from Chicago. And I'll have to look at this. Millions Now Living Will Never Die. So this is an album I bought fairly recently, well, you know, probably about 3 or 4 years ago, and came across it digging in a record store, and thought, oh, that's good. It's a reissue. It's one track, single track on side A called DJ'd, and it's sort of quite scuzzy. More musical on side B, so you've got 5 tracks on there. It's post-rock, considered by many to be a classic of the genre. To me it's a decent album, not a brilliant one. So let's move on. Number 8, another piece of vinyl, and this is a really interesting one, I think, and it's by the Beastie Boys, and it's called The In Sound from Way Out. So you might be thinking, well, didn't know you were into hip-hop, and I do like the Beastie Boys, but this is not only is it not hip-hop, but there's no vocals on there at all. As it says there, it's instrumental music composed and performed by the Beastie Boys. And the best way I can describe this is it's the album where the Beasties scratch their jazz itch, because it's a jazz album, a pure and simple jazz album. Acoustic jazz, you know, you've got the double bass there, you can hear it. I don't know where it hails from originally. It's a sort of, the back is all in French and the CD's the same. So I came across it around the Millennium, I think, a few, sort of 4 or 5 years after it was produced, and bought it on CD. and came across the vinyl, I don't know, a couple of years ago. And it's a great album. You might sort of you might sort of want to file it under Curio, but it's better than that. It's really, they're very good. It shows they're very good musicians. So anyway, that's that one. Where do we go from here? Another CD, number 7, and it's Nana Cherry, Man, which opens with a great track, Woman. And you know, that sort of, that sets it. You know, she's talking about women and the strength of women. And there's great, I mean, the most famous track on here, the standout, is 7 Seconds, which is the duet with, I can never say his name, let me look it up, Youssou N'Dour, I believe is Senegalese. But a great track, you know, every album, it's one of those ones which every now and then I pull out and give a spin and really enjoy. As is the next one. So, number 6. Ocean Colour Scene, Moseley Shoals, which I believe is named after the recording studio that it was recorded at, which is in Moseley in Birmingham, which is where I grew up basically. So you know, it sort of gets slagged a bit as not particularly good Britpop, but I enjoy this. It's got some great tracks on it. The Riverboat Song, The Day We Caught the Train. It's, you know, the whole album's pretty good. And the band, effectively, at the time, were Paul Weller's backing band. And the guitarist, Craddock, I've forgotten his first name, is basically still in the band. So he's been in it for, I don't know, 30, 35 years, possibly. Anyway, that's that. So we're halfway through. Before I go on, let me just quickly recap on what was happening in my life at the time, because as I mentioned at the beginning, it was really a time of amazing change and lots happening. As I said before, I got this job as a sales and marketing manager. I was working in Manchester, moved back to Birmingham. And sort of was really enjoying the marketing side of it and less so the sales side. But the job was 80% sales and 20% marketing, so that was a bit of a problem. And one of the competitors approached me early in the year about becoming their marketing manager. So forgetting the sales and just focusing on marketing, which is really what I wanted to do. So I accepted and left the company I'd worked with for the best part of 18 years and upsticked in April to work in Manchester. Obviously relocation time again, so at this stage at the beginning we're obviously in hotels during the week and all the usual stuff. I'd only been there 3 weeks when a merger was announced with the competitor, their main competitor, and the sort of the smaller part of the organisation I worked in, its competitor, biggest competitor, was also with that. So here we are having a sort of a merger where you know, no changes happened that much really for a long time, you know, decades or possibly 100 years, because these were old companies. And all of a sudden, you know, it's threat, it's all the usual things. Then it gets worse because, so that was May. Then in June, the middle of June, the IRA planted, well, in fact, they drove a transit van full of explosives to the centre of Manchester, parked it outside the office block that the company I worked for had, and exploded it. And obviously it caused widespread devastation in the centre of Manchester. People were injured. I don't think anyone was killed, thankfully. They managed to get most people away. But the office and a lot of buildings around it were damaged beyond repair and had to be you know, pulled down. So I was. This happened on the weekend, and on the Monday I had to rock up at at a disaster recovery centre in Warrington. Nothing had happened for 100 years or something. I turn up, and within weeks of that, within a month of that, they announced a merger with their main competitor. And then another month on, the building they'd all worked in for their whole lives, most of them, was destroyed. And I think there were a few Jonah looks, shall we say. And then, obviously, at this stage, no guarantee of a job coming out of it, because it was going to be, in the role I was in, it was going to be, two people and only one's going to go forward. So I held up relocating the family. Spent most of the time in hotels during the week. Really for the rest of the year. I did actually get the nod in the end, my job did become safe and move forward. So by the end of the year, I still hadn't bought a house in the northwest, so I was still staying in hotels at that stage. But it was an interesting year, let's put it that way. Anyway, enough of me, let's get on with the records again. So where are we? Number 5, another CD, and it's the debut from Eels, Beautiful Freak. fabulous cover art on that. I love Eels stuff. I mean, this is this is one I got at the time. I remember the turning up Eels. I think they just got off a plane and were jet lagged. Went straight into the studios to record Top of the Pops with their sort of lead off single, the first track on here, Novocaine for the Soul. I remember there were two of them, if I remember rightly, and I think Mark Everett was playing on toy drum kit, so they're playing toy instruments, and at the end kicked over the drumsticks, sort of Keith Moon style. Drumsticks, drum kit, Keith Moon style. So it's great. And a second track, really famous, Susan's House. My ex-wife, first wife, was called Susan, and I don't really want to go there again. So where are we? Number 4, a piece of vinyl. And this is DJ Shadow introducing, and for record collectors, the cover is some people having a bit of a dig in a record store. This is a very influential album. It's the first album that was recorded purely from samples. So it was taken from samples of vinyl records, and the whole thing pulled together in a way where it's not obviously so. They do sound like songs. I mean, I loved it at the time, and it's probably, I think it was the year later, 97, I think, where I came across this first and bought the CD. Really liked it. A few years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I came across the vinyl or a vinyl version and bought that. And then this one, this is my third version of it, came out in 2021, and it's basically the 25th anniversary of it. And Shadow had sort of long lost the original tape, so it was recorded on DATs, digital audio tapes, and he found them just in time to do this. So this was remastered and half-speed remastered at Abbey Road and recut. So I sort of mug that I am, decided to buy it, but it's a very, very good recording. Number 3. This could I was umming and ahhing between Shadow and this one, but I decided this one I listened to a bit more often, shall we say. And it's Porcupine Tree and the album Signify. Great album, this one. It's not it doesn't have a lot of standout tracks. But the whole album is good. It's one of those albums where you just want to sit and listen to all of it. At this, I think I had a Porcupine Tree album, the Sky Moves Sideways on the last one, with 95, and I think I said at the time that at that stage, Porcupine Tree was really a Stephen Wilson solo project. But actually, some of the tracks on that album did have what became the band, and some didn't. So it's a bit of a mix. This, you could say, is the first album that is, truly Porcupine Tree as a band, so it had Richard Barbaria on keyboards, who still was playing when I saw them last year. Colin Maitland on drums, who carried on for several albums and another sort of several years, and then left and was replaced by the more famous drummer Gavin Harrison, and it also had Colin Edwards on bass. So that was it became a fairly settled band, and the style-wise, it sort of moved forward a little bit. So whereas the Earth Moves Sideways is predominantly psych, this gets more heavy. So this is where they start to get into that sort of prog metal subgenre area. I'm not really too bothered about that, but it's at the heavier end of Porcupine Tree, and I really like it. It works very, very well. So number 2, and it is the Manic Street Preachers and Everything Must Go, and this to me is their masterpiece. So this is where they really peaked. I think I said last time, I think it was when we did the 94 one, there was I think was it the Holy Bible, I think, was on there, and I had it fairly low down because, I said I'm a little bit bored of the Manics, and sort of listening to it again, it didn't inspire me. This album's different. This one I really like. Whenever I play it, I like the whole album. It's got some great tracks on there. Designed for Life, Kevin Carter, Australia, etc. But the whole album is good. And I love the title of the opening track, Elvis Impersonator, Blackpool Pier. So it's a very good album, and it is, in my humble, their best. So we move to number 1, and another album which is the band's best, and that is REM and New Adventures in Hi-Fi. I really remember this really well. So, when I was living week in the hotel, I had a little portable CD player, and I'd got this on CD and played it endlessly in the room, and I just absolutely love it. And I play it again. It's one I've forked out for a vinyl reissue, and it is fabulous. How the West Was Won and where it got us, Wake Up on Undertow, Ebo the Letter. That's probably my favourite track on the album, with Patti Smith sharing the vocals on there, and Binky the Doormat goes right through, and it finishes on Electrolyte. All great songs, lovely album. I really like the cover art on this. It's one of those ones which, simple though it is, a simple black and white photo of a desert scene. It's just sort of telling. It's one of those ones where I could just see it and I know immediately what it is. So that's 96. As I say, it was a pretty momentous year for me personally. Some great records going on there. Next time I'm going to do 97, and I know there's some cracking records, and 97 is possibly the best of these, or certainly one of the best of this 10-year period. So I haven't gone through them, but I know just from memory that I can think of 4 or 5 which are really good. So thanks for joining me in my in conservatory, in the potting shed and greenhouse, and a nice sunny place. So thanks for watching. See you again. Cheers.